Thank you. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today or listening in if you're catching the recording. We are happy to have Valerie Sakimura with us today from Deans for Impact. She's the executive director there and is, I think, doing really fantastic things because I've been noticing some changes in the resources that they're providing and the work that they're doing. So she's going to share with us all of those things, ways that all of us working in higher ed can interface with what Deans for Impact is all about. So I'm really looking forward to learning from her today. So Valerie, you can take it from here.
Thanks, Stephanie, and really appreciate the opportunity to be here. When Stephanie told me about this group of trailblazing leaders and faculty in higher education, I was really impressed. I know how hard this work can be, even when you have a lot of people at your institution pulling in the same direction, and even harder when you're kind of trying to lead the way. And so really appreciate the invitation and just gratitude for all of the work that everyone in this community is doing to do more for the teachers that we're putting into the classroom and ultimately more for our kids. So thanks for
These are the
having me
rock
here today.
stars
Yeah.
in this group, that's for sure.
I thought I'd start first by introducing myself. As Stephanie said, I'm the executive director of Deans for Impact. I have been in that role for a little over a year and a half, but a total of almost a decade at Deans for Impact. Prior to being in this role, I was the vice president of programs supporting the faculty and leaders to really redesign coursework and clinical experiences. I'm currently living in Boulder, Colorado, but I'm originally from Honolulu, Hawaii. So if anybody wants to talk about Hawaii, I love doing that at any time or space. I spend a lot of my time with these two little ones. My daughters are 4 and 1.5, and keep me on my toes and remind me about why this work is so important. And then in my free time, love hiking in Colorado, gardening, cooking. Those are some of the things that keep me going when I'm not in this work in higher ed with some of you all. And for those of you who don't know Deans for Impact or don't know it well, I thought I'd give you just a little bit of a background on the organization. So we were started in 2015. We're a national nonprofit really trying to ensure that every child has a well-prepared teacher. And we really live by this sentence that you see on the screen, because brilliance is equally distributed, but quality instruction is not. And we know often that novice teachers are going into schools and districts with high percentages of kids of color, kids from low-income communities, from communities that are historically marginalized. And so really trying to make sure that when those novice teachers are coming out of their preparation programs, they are ready to support kids in those types of environments. At Deans for Impact, we're using 3 different levers to advance this mission. The first is supporting deans and program leaders, thus our name, Deans for Impact. It's probably what I think a lot of people know us for. We build the capacity of deans who want to transform the way that they prepare future teachers. So we have a leadership fellowship for deans. We bring communities of deans together. We also are doing a lot of work with teacher educators, and I think people know less about that work, but really working with teams of teacher educators at programs to create meaningful practice-based experiences for aspiring educators that are grounded in what we know about how students learn, and really trying to ensure that those novice teachers have a solid foundation in instructional decision-making that is supporting equity in their classrooms. And then our third lever is working with policymakers. We champion policies to make pathways into teaching more affordable and accessible, practice-based and focused on instruction. So since our inception, I think we've worked with close to or right about 200 programs across 42 states, and that number is growing every year. and really excited to dive in specifically to our work on literacy with you all today. I think one thing that's helpful to understand, particularly as we think about our work with teacher educators, is kind of these guiding principles that matter to us, because this really grounds our approach to the work. So two key things that I want to name. First is that we think support really matters. So we are working with faculty to have protected time and space to do the work of learning in community with each other, to really thinking about how they can create connections across their areas of diverse expertise, and really doing that so they can be authentic champions of the work. And then the second is that we believe that materials matter. We know faculty have a ton on their plates. And so, as much as possible, we want to provide high quality resources for faculty that they can use to build shared understanding, but also that they can use to integrate into their coursework in ways that we hope lighten the load of course revisions and redesign in ways that are helpful for them. So in terms of our support, this year we're working specifically in our literacy work. We're working with 18 EPPs across 5 states. I've listed them out here. Next year, as of now, I think we'll be working with 23 EPPs across 7 states. Although I feel like every week we get something new or something interesting bubbling up, which I think is a testament to a lot of the work that folks in this group are doing and others around the country. So some of the ways that we do that work is first thinking about building a shared vision among teacher educators. So, there are a lot of new educator standards, statewide literacy mandates, initiatives going on around the country. And so one of the things that we do when we work with EPPs is bring their teacher educators together to really try to dig into what some of those changes are and really deeply understand them. We often do learning sessions for teacher educators who might be working in the same department or not, but are all involved in literacy preparation and often don't have opportunities to work with each other, talk with each other. And so we bring early childhood faculty, elementary faculty, special education faculty, those with expertise on multi-language learners together, really to bring that different expertise together around the table and build a shared vision for what novice teacher preparation can look like. We're also doing that sometimes with teacher educators that are sitting in district partners. So mentor teachers or induction coaches. We facilitate opportunities for teacher educators and faculty to go into district schools and do walks and observations with district personnel to try to build that shared understanding of what they want teachers to be able to do and what they want children to be able to learn and experience in those classrooms, and facilitate opportunities for district and EPP folks to look at curricula together, look at materials together, to internalize that together, to really try to continue to build that coherence from EPP to district setting. And then one of the things that we hear a lot is it's really great to redesign courses or redo syllabi, but if you are in a program with a lot of adjuncts or a lot of clinical supervisors that turn over every year. You can do a lot of work and then it fades over time. So one of the things that we have worked with programs to build are onboarding toolkits for new faculty, so that every year they can bring some of these new adjuncts, new clinical supervisors into all of the work that they have done over time to redesign the experiences for teacher candidates. Another thing we're doing is supporting the redesign of syllabi, and kind of not just at the syllabus level, but really trying to get into the tasks and assignments and assessments that are being given to teacher candidates. One big area of focus for us is practice opportunities for teacher candidates, making sure they're not only kind of learning the content, but being asked to practice it in scaffolded ways that increase in complexity over time, and building the capacity of teacher educators to lead some of those practice opportunities with teacher candidates. And then the third type of support that we're providing to teams of faculty is really around data-informed continuous improvement. So helping faculty set up pre and post assessments so they can look at candidate growth over time, supporting the analysis and visualization of that data, and then facilitating conversations to think about not only what can be improved the next time that the course is taught, but really thinking about after one session, what are the things that need to be retaught for teacher candidates? How are things being connected to other courses? Where can those things be reinforced over time? So that's kind of on the support matters side. And I'll talk a little bit more about the materials, because I think many of the programs that we're working with this year are taking advantage of some of the materials that that we've created in order to integrate them into their courses. So the reason we started creating these materials is we were seeing and hearing in our work with EPPs that faculty were being asked to meet these new expectations for preparing teacher candidates, both around kind of scientifically based reading instruction and also around the use of high quality instructional materials. And they were being given very little time or support with which to do any of that revision. And so we're looking for materials or resources that they could integrate into what they were doing. So we created these materials as a support for faculty to try to help lighten that load. And some kind of important design parameters that we have kept in mind as we've created some of these materials. One, that really trying to align to the evidence. And so what is the evidence saying about great reading instruction? Two, we're really trying to align to the needs of novices. So I think over and over again in our work, we've seen how important it is for experiences to be really scaffolded for novices, much more so than for in-service teachers. And sometimes that gets lost, I think. So we really focused on making sure the materials were very scaffolded, intentionally moving from kind of foundational to complex, and that we're trying to develop both content and pedagogical content knowledge simultaneously. And then lastly here, aligned to the job. So again, this goes back to the practice opportunities, really wanting to give teacher candidates a lot of opportunities to see examples and to practice, to have examples grounded in real curricula, real lesson internalization protocols that they might see in the schools and districts that they go into, and real practice, doing things like analyzing student work, recording enactment of lessons, and getting feedback on those. So those are some of the principles that we kept in mind. We have two sets of literacy modules. Um, the first is really about using high quality instructional materials to support knowledge building. And the second is around foundational skills. The foundational skills set is really anchored on understanding components of effective foundational skills instruction, what a structured literacy block looks like, what quality curricula looks like, and then giving opportunities to build content knowledge and pedagogical content knowledge and analyze and practice lessons that are grounded in high quality instructional materials. I think it's really important to note that these modules are not intended to be everything that a novice teacher needs to know about either of these strands of the reading rope. They are intended to provide some foundation, but they're not intended to replace the entirety of a reading methods course, for example. So they are things that can be plugged in as useful by teacher educators as they're looking across kind of their course. And while we're trying to give exposure to many topics, we are also really intentionally focusing on a more discrete set of topics. So teacher candidates have the opportunity to go a little bit more in depth. If you're interested in the first strands of modules, this is about using high quality instructional materials to support knowledge building. There are 4 modules. It's about 24 hours of content if you take them all together. The first module is really about understanding language comprehension. The second is an introduction to high quality instructional materials. The third one is really about how do you internalize and intellectually prepare for a lesson or unit. And then the fourth is really about practicing how to elicit effortful thinking from students in the context of one of these lessons. And then the modules that we have for foundational skills, there's 7 modules and about 15 hours of content. And those first 3 modules, again, are kind of like introductory content. But then there's modules 4, 5, and 6, 7 go into some specific topics. There's a deep dive into syllabication and a deep dive into morphology, which we chose for a couple of reasons. One, we had data showing that those were areas where candidates were quite weak and instructors weren't devoting as much time to those topics. And, we know morphological awareness is a predictor of future reading success. And so wanted to just provide for teacher educators a little bit more opportunities for practice if they wanted to kind of go a little deeper in those areas, but didn't have resources built out around that. So the modules are currently designed to be delivered asynchronously via Nearpod or Google Slides. And we developed them asynchronously because we were working with many different types of pathways with different candidate populations and wanted to ensure that these modules would work for programs that were delivering content in non-traditional ways to teacher candidates. And we also wanted to make sure that they could be easily integrated by faculty. Nearpod is a platform that we really like because it's interactive. It allows kind of forced opportunities for candidates to pause and reflect and to pause and practice, and also gives on the back end detailed reports to faculty to understand candidate thinking. But we also know that a lot of institutions don't want to use Nearpod, and so we also have the content available in Google Slides as well. And then we also have synchronous components to each of these modules, a pre-module structure for faculty to kind of preview content on the front end, and then a post-module structure to support candidates to synthesize and reflect, and an opportunity to reteach or address any misconceptions that teacher candidates might have going through the modules. All the modules have formative exit tickets built in to support faculty in understanding candidate learning and mastery of the content. And those are all built into Google Forms. So candidates have, or faculty have access to that data. And we provide faculty also with kind of a exemplar responses and scoring guides to those. I'll share a little bit about how these modules were developed for people who are interested in that part of it. So both sets of content were created with networks of EPPs informed by input from faculty. In 2021, we worked with a network of 4 programs in Tennessee on the strands of modules around using HQIM to support knowledge building. A really diverse set of institutions. We had private institutions, the large public flagship, small residency programs. So got input from faculty from a lot of different, with very different candidate populations that they were supporting. We originally piloted those modules actually in secondary ELA, but then have revised them and updated them to be specifically for elementary ELA. And then in Texas, we worked with a network of 3 programs on the original foundational skills modules that we developed. So what we did to develop this content, first we looked at these programs' data and artifacts. We were looking at candidate data, existing syllabi, assignments, things like that, to understand where the biggest opportunities were for additional learning opportunities for teacher candidates. Faculty gave us input on design parameters, basically what would have to be true for them to want to use these materials and this content. And then we had content experts draft the materials. And then we had a very extensive review and feedback process. We had over 50 reviewers review and give us feedback from teacher educators, reading specialists, special education teachers, content experts. David and Meredith Lieben gave feedback. Claude Goldenberg gave feedback. We have a long list of folks that have provided feedback, very helpfully provided feedback to us, and we've incorporated their feedback into the material. And then we piloted these materials with teacher candidates from these 7 EPPs and gathered data both on teacher candidate performance and also on the teacher candidate and the faculty experience using these materials, and used all of that data to revise the materials. So these were the pilot results for our HQIM modules in Tennessee. Across all candidates in the program, we saw an average of gain of 18 percentage points. And I think most importantly, at the outset of the network, only 45% of teacher candidates endorsed instructional decisions that would support equitable access to grade level learning. And at the end of the network, 77% were able to do so. So that was our pilot data. We've since revised those materials. And we should be getting the data for this academic year soon, although we don't have it yet. And then these are the results for the foundational skills modules. We had about 130 candidates in our pilot, seeing double-digit growth from pre to post assessment. And I think what you don't see here, but which we were really paying attention to, was again mindset shifts that we saw among teacher candidates that they held about students. So for example, we ask candidates to select between 2 instructional tasks to support student learning. One is a kind of rigorous task grounded um, in fact, effective instructional strategies. Another is a task that kind of emphasizes fun at the expense of learning. And on the pre-assessment, we saw that over half of candidates were choosing the less rigorous task. And when they were asked to provide rationale for that, candidates were saying things like, because 70% of my kids are English language learners, or just things that were reflecting their lowered expectations of groups of students. And on the post-assessment, we saw over 80% of teacher candidates selecting the more rigorous task, and the rationale that they were providing showed a pretty dramatic shift in their beliefs about what students were capable of if teachers were equipped with materials and instructional strategies in order to best support them. Last thing I'll say really quickly is that in some places where we've worked, we've also done some alignment work to make sure that the module content aligns to some of the state requirements or specific state resources that teachers are being asked to use around foundational literacy skills instruction or high quality instructional materials. So we've really tried to embed those state-specific resources in those modules. And so in those 5 states that we've been working in, we have materials that are more specifically targeted to those state contexts. I just went through a lot. I am happy to answer any questions folks have, comments on what you think is useful or less useful about any of what I've gone through, and also putting up my contact information in case y'all want to have a longer conversation or talk more about any of these things.
Thank you, Valerie. That's so helpful. I have several questions. I'm usually the one with the most questions,
Yeah.
but I'm going to let other people ask. Leslie Sharp, I noticed Arkansas, one of the states that Deans for Impact is working in. And I know you're in Arkansas, so I wondered if you had any questions for Valerie.
Yes, I did. I noticed that as well. So I was just wondering, in what capacity are you working in Arkansas?
Yeah, we've been working with 2 EPPs in Arkansas, Henderson State, and I'm going to forget the second one, in partnership with the Arkansas Department of Education.
Okay. Because I know it's not my university, which is University of Arkansas at Little Rock.
No,
So,
it's not. I think it's
okay.
Fayetteville.
Okay. So have you been working with them in all these capacities or just certain parts, or I was just interested?
Yeah, we started our work with them with those institutions in Arkansas this spring semester. And so those institutions are using some of the materials that we talked about. And so what we have been doing is convening groups of teacher educators at each of those institutions to do some of that shared learning together, to think about where in their courses they have opportunities to provide more practice opportunities, and think about how to integrate some different resources and structures into their syllabi.
Okay. We're on that sort of that pathway with another group. So I was just wondering, because this is really what I do, try to do by myself, and it's impossible. So
It's so hard to do it by yourself.
yeah, it's impossible, but you're so focused on exactly what I would like to do, and we're doing other things. So anyway, just wondering what you were doing, if it was HQIM, or because we have that in Arkansas as well,
Yeah,
so
we're doing
anyway.
both foundational skills and HQIM with the EPPs in Arkansas.
Okay, thank you.
So what's the typical process if an EPP wants to engage in working with Deans for Impact? How does that work? That somebody gets connected to you?
It happens in a number of different ways. We have EPPs, either deans or faculty, that approach us directly, and are looking for materials or support. And so we work with them to think about kind of what might be a good fit and how we might deliver that. We also sometimes SEAs engage with us and say, we would love to support a certain number of EPPs in our state. And so they might connect us with programs in their state that they want to work with. We also have relationships with local and state and regional funders who sometimes have an interest in improving literacy instruction in a particular region. And so they might say, we're really interested in seeing what you can do if you can bring a number of EPPs together in this region. And so we'll reach out to EPPs that way and see if they might be interested.
That's great. That's helpful. I have a specific question about your modules. This idea of providing content that teacher educators can just integrate into their courses, I think is just so useful. I wonder what your experience has been with that being useful for prompting conversation, for like a jumping off point for more learning for faculty as they see the content that they can plug into their courses. Has it opened up those faculty wanting to learn more? You said for the foundations modules, morphology being a topic area, I find that a lot of educators just don't know a lot about. So does it serve to sort of trigger some additional learning for faculty when they're using those modules?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing, a couple of responses to that. So first, we ask all faculty who are using the modules to engage with the modules first as if they were a teacher candidate. So we
Okay.
expect them to do the content or go through the content themselves.
Okay.
And I think sometimes even that process prompts questions for the faculty we work with around, oh, I didn't know this like little piece of it. I want to kind of dig deeper into that. And then we do see, as faculty integrate these modules, even in small ways, particularly as they get data back from teacher candidates and see what teacher candidates are capable of if kind of given some of these more rigorous practice opportunities, it kind of shifts their mindsets around what they can ask teacher candidates to be doing. And then it kind of really opens up the box around what are we doing to prepare teacher candidates and can we push them more in order to get them ready to be in the classroom.
That's really interesting. So high expectations at all levels there, right?
Yeah.
So to what extent are the modules used as an opportunity to model good teaching? Like, is it set up that way? So not only are the faculty learning perhaps or going deeper into some content areas, but are they seeing illustrations in the modules of like good instructional design and delivery that they can then emulate in the rest of their teaching? Or is that asking too much?
Well, I'll say we try to incorporate principles of good learning design into the modules. They are all asynchronous, so I think there's somewhat of a limit to what you can do around that. We have had faculty though convert some of the modules to be synchronous, and in some of those cases we have gone in and kind of observed faculty teaching and been able to provide feedback to them on what we're seeing and how they're facilitating those learning experiences.
Nice. Do you have any like snippets or ways for folks to preview any of the content of the modules? Is there like a trailer for one of the modules?
Yeah, I think if folks are interested, shoot me an email. One of the things that I think the modules are most effective when they're in Nearpod, so you can actually work through them as we would want a candidate to to go through. So we can set people up to view those in Nearpod. We just need to kind of set it up so people can access it through Nearpod.
Okay, so reaching out to you is the best way
Yeah.
To access that. Yeah, I'm so interested in the work that you're doing around the application to practice and the work that you're doing to network the districts to draw that bridge between the districts and the preparation entity, because that's so important and it's often such a disconnect. So I'm really appreciative of that aspect of it. Question in the chat: you finding a difference between faculty that have recently been in the classroom versus those that has been a while? That's a good question.
I don't know if it's how long it's been that they've left the classroom, but I do think we see a difference between faculty who are in classrooms a lot versus faculty who are not in classrooms a lot. So we have faculty who left the classroom, decades ago, but as part of their practice and work, they make it a point to be in classrooms frequently. And so there is a difference between those faculty and faculty who may not have those opportunities. We know lots of faculty actually don't have opportunities to get into classrooms, not through any fault of their own, but the way that their job is structured and expectations are structured for them. And so that's part of the reason why one of the things we do when we can is create those opportunities for faculty to be in schools and districts together.
Yeah, that's great. So important. Yeah, so I just appreciate that whole clinical practice aspect of what you're doing. And I appreciate that there are folks in your network that you mentioned, at least the two groups that you showed that help you create those modules that are alternate pathways that are not the traditional pathways, because they're those folks, I think, are not often engaged as much in this work. So sometimes forgotten, actually. So I'm happy to see that. Okay, any other questions? Did I miss anything in the chat? Anybody want to unmute?
So I'm interested in, and you provide several different services, but when we're talking about the people, the faculty go through the modules, whatever they're interested in, whatever they need to do, and then they experience it as a student. And then does your support come in then after that, or how does that, I mean, what's the longevity of what you do with the faculty after they do those modules?
Yeah, it depends. For some faculty, we might work with them for a year. For others, depending on how the support is set up, we have that network in Texas I mentioned, that scope for 4 years of work with faculty. So, part of what we're really trying to do is ensure that the work is sustainable over time. I think when you're trying to get a lot of people on board and make sure it's really embedded into the fabric of the way things happen, it takes longer. And that's part of the reason why we're trying to build resources like the onboarding toolkit for new faculty, so that as we go away and as faculty turnover, there's a way to kind of continue that work and sustain it over time. But it depends a little bit on how that support is set up at the outset.
So like who has contracted with you, if it's been like at the state level, or if it's through some kind of a grant, or if it's an individual institution.
Yep, that's right.
That arrangement, that agreement is setting the scope of the work that you would provide and how long that happens.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, Leslie, I think you need to reach out to your Department of Ed. Not that you need any more work to do.
Actually, my dean and I are together for grant writing, so this might be
Wonderful.
it. Yep.
That's great.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Valerie and Stephanie. I'm with IDA, the International Dyslexia Association, and we're working with a couple of states and some of the universities. And I'm interested in, we're starting to hear a lot of universities aren't ready to come through our accreditation. Their coursework isn't ready. They're just learning and seeing the things that they need to do. And so what we're trying to figure out is who are the people out there that are doing this work with higher ed to try and get them ready to be able to make sure that their courses are aligned with the science of reading, whether or not they come through the IDA accreditation. So I'm working with Indiana and seeing that there's there's grant money that's being used, same with what's going on in Pennsylvania. And are you hearing or seeing other states that are starting to do these collaborative discussions with higher ed?
I think a lot of states have put in place new requirements, as you know, and I'm excited when states are thinking about what is the support that we can provide to EPPs to make sure that they can kind of move in the direction of those requirements. And I think there are some states like Indiana, I know, is moving that in that direction, but I think a lot of states are still in the mindset of we have the requirements, now it's up to EPPs to kind of like try to figure it out.
Mm.
And so that's part of the work that we're trying to do at the state level is remind folks at the state level that it doesn't just happen overnight. It requires time and space and resources to do the learning and the planning and the designing together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that similar to what you're seeing, Mary, or different?
Yes. So that's, we've got some impact states, and that's what we're trying to figure out is bringing together not only the EPPs, but who are the people out there in that state that can come to the table to talk about teacher preparation and the outcomes of student, being able to read. So those are the things. So listening to what you're doing is very similar to what we're trying to do. So maybe that's something that I need to start reaching out to you and thinking about what can we do to help these, not only the universities, but independent programs that are out there that are doing, in-service work so that there's that connection. So it's not just all pre-service, right? There's so many teachers out there that have already got their degrees and these new legislations that are in place. And now how are they going to get this new knowledge?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like we don't want to get ahead of the capacity to support the change. We've got the momentum and movement going in the right direction, but we have to have the systems of support so that the change actually happens and is sustained. So yeah, we're still building that, I think.
Right. So I'm almost thinking that it would be nice to have this follow-up conversations of who are the people at this table that we can have to start talking about. We are all doing the same thing, it seems like, and can we kind of bring our resources together to figure out how can we have an impact in each one of these states? You're targeting certain states, we're targeting certain states, and I think we need to be thinking about it together.
Yeah, that's great. Mary, I don't know if you know about the Evidence Advocacy Center. I'm on the executive committee with that group, and I know Deans for Impact is connected there. The Path Forward is connected. The Reading League is connected to us. But that's one place where we could bring together the various supports in the way that you're saying, that could support at the state level when there are policies and laws that are changing, because the Evidence Advocacy Center is sort of a clearinghouse for, accessing what's in the research literature. And Rhonda Fritz and I are co-leads of the IHE team. So IHEs are a specific focus area for the Evidence Advocacy Center. So that would be one way that we could talk about bringing some of these efforts together.
Right.
So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. We can
Mhm.
definitely talk more about that.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, I'm mindful of the time and want to thank Valerie again for her time today, sharing with us about the work of Deans for Impact. And I know that the folks who are here today have been grateful for hearing about your work, and many others will listen to the recording. So we really appreciate you sharing, and hopefully we don't flood you with lots and lots of requests.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. Glad to be here with you all. And thank you again for all the work you're doing, because it is, Leslie, as you said, it's hard. It's hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Happy summer.